Bonjour à tous. Welcome to our special lesson about French political, society, and cultural lessons. And in the previous session, we have viewed the inequality in France in general. And today, in this session, we are going to view the problem of social inequality in France from certain specific dimensions, notably the generation. This is the graphic about the French pyramids of demography. There you can see that there are some situations that we can remark. In general, there are many teenagers in the French society. But as you can remark from this graphic, the generation between 25 and 29 years old, it occupies a large portion in the French society. But in the contrary, as you can also see that the generations between 40 and 60 years old, they occupy a huge proportion in the French population demography. And this is a graphic about gender and job. Here we have to learn a word in French, profession intermédiaire, because as you can see from this graphic that there are many people in France, they are so-called profession intermédiaire. Well, who are these people who occupy those so-called profession intermédiaire, intermediate profession? Well, intermediate profession means that they are between manager and worker. So taking an example, when you engage a sport trainer to do a sport exercise, the sport trainer is an intermediate profession, profession intermédiaire. So you can see that in the French society, there are a considerable, significant portion of the people, they occupy those so-called job, which is called profession intermédiaire. It means that they don't have a fixed salary. They do have a job. They can earn money, but these are not steady money. Their money depends on whenever, if they have cases to work. So this is something that you have to bear in mind, so that later on when you observe French society, you will better understand why certain people participate consistently in the so-called Gilets jaunes, yellow jacket demonstration. And this is a graphic about the youth unemployment. So you can see that in general, the youth unemployment rate is high in many Western society. And in France, they occupy either men or women. The youth unemployment rate is roughly about 20% of young people who doesn't have job. And this is a very mysterious graphic. But the thing that I can tell you from this graphic is that young generation have less income. And when you begin your career, you gain less money. And you will probably reach the peak of your salary when you are between 40 to 60 years old. And after your retirement, your income will decrease. So I think that this is the lesson that this graphic can tell us. And this is also a second very mystic graphic. But the thing that I can tell you from this graphic is almost the same thing. Taking the years of 2010 as example, when you are 25, you will gain roughly about 22,000 euro per year. You will reach the peak in 2010. You will probably reach the peak of your salary when you are about 50 years old. At that time, at that age, your annual income will reach 28,000 euro per year. And after your retirement, your income will decrease. But please also notice that the gap between the age is more and more huge because there is a gap between 22,000 and 28,000. But in 1980, you can see that the gap is not so serious. So this graphic also tells us a very important story about the inequality of generation among their income. This is a graphic which tells us that if you are a man, you earn more. If you are a manager, you earn much more than simple worker. If you are a manager, your monthly salary will be more than 3,000 euro. But if you are a worker, then you might probably earn 1,200 euro per month. If you have a full job, then average salary will be about 2,000. But if you have those petit job, so-called in French, part-time job, then your salary will be extremely low. The more you are educated, the higher your salary will be. This is the gap between salary among several dimensions. This is also a very, very interesting graphic. Well, from this graphic, we can see who decide, who made decision in the society. You can see that there are several generations. From the silent generation who are aged more than 76 years old, there are baby boomer, there are Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. Well, you young people, you might be very curious about this graphic, how these political power are measured. Well, from this graphic, we can see that why the Generation X occupy 29% of political power, because they hold 46% of local and central government position. I also have to remind you that this is a graphic for America, but we can use the same technique to understand the French society. And why does those baby boomer and the so-called silent generation, they occupy such a huge part of the political power? Because they contribute to political spending. They contribute more than 80% of political spending, means that they give donation to political party. And further, on this graphic, you will better understand why you young people, Generation Z, you are so weak in terms of political influence. Because these are graphics, they are measured upon the voter distribution in terms of number, the political spending, the federal position, the state position, and local position. So from this graphic, we can notice that those baby boomer, those Generation X, why they obtain such a high political power? Because they work. They work in public position, and they donate to political parties. So that is why these generation, they hold greater political power, greater political influence than the millennials and Generation Z. So here come to the end points of this session. Well, whenever there is a social incident, very first thing that we have to bear in mind is to see who will be affected the most. So when President Emmanuel Macron declared that the French government is going to increase diesel price and the diesel tax, why certain people feel that they are more influenced than the others? So the Gilets jaunes, the Yellow Jacket movement, is a fight for their purchasing ability, because many of them said that we got nothing at the end of the month, the so-called 月光族. So Gilets jaunes, Yellow Jacket, is a fight of 月光族 in Chinese, because at the end of the month, many young people, especially or these single parents family, they got nothing in their purse. This is a graphic that I get from internet. In 2017, 10% of the French, the most richest 10% of the French family, they detain more than 57% of the richness. But the 50% of those, the poorest family, they can only share the 5% of the national revenue. But we also mentioned in our previous session that please pay attention to the so-called lazy bone package. Be aware of the 懒人包, because every graphic, every statistics are shaped so that you can see the reality that the people want you to see. So we also have to verify if these information are correct. Otherwise, you can read a very different story from these graphic or statistics from which you gather from internet. So, well, who are these Yellow Jacket? I only want to drag your attention to these person, because in general, those protesters of Yellow Jacket, they earn about 1,400 euro per month, and 65% of them, they claim that they have problem at the end of the month. So they are so-called French 月光族. At the end of the month, they got nothing in their purse for their life. So this is the true end of this session, and as usual, these are references that I pick up from the internet for this session. And until next session, please stay tuned and hope to see you again Au revoir et à bientôt.